this is Todd, and we're off to a really bad start today. Today I had intended on bringing the IRIX 11mm f4 Blackstone lens. I changed my mind because I actually had been working on my gimbals last night. It's not worth really explaining the whole story. The bottom line is I decided instead to bring my two Tamron lenses and test them on the gimbal today, something I haven't done in a while. And I thought it'd be a good not only test of the G2X, Tilta G2X gimbal, which I'm using, but also just to show how well these Tamron lenses really work on the gimbal and on the Z system. Unfortunately though, so I have two G2X gimbals, and one is named Trusty and the other is named Rusty. Now, I think I brought Trusty, which I think the names are self-explanatory. Trusty does what he's supposed to do, but I did, however, forget in all my testing to charge my batteries, and I forgot to bring my extra set with me. Now, though it seems to be working okay right at this moment, it's shut down twice right before this. So this might be a very short-lived test of the gimbal itself. I might have to lug the weight around in my backpack, and we'll just be doing some handheld stuff. But, you know, it's okay. This is going to be a good week for doing this stuff, vlogging and whatnot, because I've not only got my gimbals up and going, I also have the Nikon MB-N10 battery grip, which is going to give me a little bit more battery life. Of course, I did forget to bring my one extra battery, so I only have two in it. What can I say? When you wake up at 3 o'clock, things don't always work out. So anyways, this is my favorite little park again. And we're just gonna make our way to the Jinja, the temple, and the old ancient houses. Hopefully with some cool gimbal action. You know, it seems to be behaving now. I don't know what was going on there. We'll see. Oh yeah, and I'm looking down because, let's see, can I get that up higher without hitting the gimbal? Yeah, the smartphone is really just for framing purposes, but I might actually ditch the smartphone. Oh, and there, so there we go. No, this might be Trusty. This might be Trusty with a low battery. Hold on. Come on. Come on, gimbal. Whoever you are, just work. So, for the record, the G2X is not a vlogging gimbal. It weighs a lot. No, I forgot the numbers. I don't, geez, where am I? There I am. No, I forgot the actual numbers. I think the gimbal weighs something like 2 kilograms. And the Z6 with the battery pack and the Tamron lens is gotta be at least, what, 1.5 kilograms. Combined with my phone, little Pixie. Not to mention my backpack, which has another lens in there. And you can see this starts to become quite a bit of weight. I guess if you want to lift some weights, that's good. The reason I chose this gimbal was because at the time, this actually came out right before the DJI Ronin S, I believe. And it's actually, I swear, I have a theory that they're actually internally the same, but they're physically also very similar. This one's a little bit more pretty. The Ronin's a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more control for the everyday user. But this gimbal, if I can keep myself in the frame, this gimbal, especially again at the time I bought it, it lets you dial in, and I would say still more than most, it lets you dial in the actual motor torque and the dead point and all that stuff. It's I would call this a professional in the truest sense gimbal. I haven't worked with a gimbal in a while, if you can't tell. It's in the truest sense as like on a set, as meaning fucking hey, meaning on a set, this gimbal gives you the most ability to, given enough time, do exactly what you want to do with it. So let's turn you guys around. You guys can hear me regardless. Let's give you some beauty. So this gimbal is a gimbal that is, to me, I think it's the best gimbal that never was. And what I mean by that is that Tilta did a pretty much terrible job with the rollout of this gimbal, with the support of this gimbal, and with just giving information in general about this gimbal. That combined with a early version of this gimbal. So there's actually a G1 gimbal, a G2 gimbal, and a G2X, which is this gimbal. The difference between the G2 and the G2X, the G2 has the more traditional L-shaped back motor arm, where the G2X has a 45-degree angle arm, which allows you more clearance for longer lenses and bigger camera bodies, as well as the ability to see the rear screen of your camera a lot better. So I can't speak to the G1 and the G2, but the G2X, so as I said, I have two, right? Rusty, my first G2X to come to me, was faulty. And the fault is something to do with voltage. I've tested all, and one of the USB ports anyways is showing lower voltage than it should have. What happens with Rusty is what's happening basically with this one, which is why I suspect I brought Rusty, is that for no apparent reason it's working fine and then it just drops and turns off. However, the reason I think this actually is trusty with a low battery is because Rusty, when it does that one or two times, it'll stay off and stay off and stay off. Sometimes for 1 or 2 weeks, it's really weird. But when it comes back, it works fine for a little while. So I had returned Rusty to Tilta to have it repaired, and it came back. It was a long hassle, which I'll talk about maybe another time, but not the best experience. When it came back, within a day, it started doing the same thing. So basically about 6 months later, after the whole RMA process had started, I ended up with a new gimbal and they let me keep Rusty. The new gimbal worked awesome. No problems whatsoever. However, I had noticed some very minor redesigns. Actually, the arm themselves had some metal redesign, and I hope one day to take Rusty in. There's a lot of electronic shops obviously in Japan that do specialty work and get it fixed. It's something that I may be able to do myself, but I think the gimbals are a headache to open up and work on, and especially because these gimbals have encoders which are beyond me, at least right now. So the G2X quickly earned a reputation of being a very unreliable shit gimbal, essentially. And the truth is, if you get a good one, or the revised version that they never ever mentioned that they revised, it's a great gimbal. And besides the customization of, I mean, pretty much every aspect of the motor strength and all the stuff that I can't think of the names right now, but despite all the customability of this gimbal, what makes it also exceptional is that it is basically an all metal build. It's got a beautiful rosewood handle and allows you to drop the batteries out of the bottom without doing any fancy footwork. But the all metal build really is amazing, and I actually had, after Rusty already had many problems and it was obvious it wasn't working very well, but I had accidentally dropped it off the table once and it did bend the arm, but because it's really good quality aluminum, it was really easy to bend it back. So it's really a rugged gimbal. I think it's, like I say, made for professional use. It's not a gimbal most would want to carry around every day, myself included. I've been keeping my eyes on Moza Aircross or Aircross 2 gimbals for good deals to do this kind of stuff with, but honestly, with everything happening right now, I don't really have the budget for it, and that's okay. So it's also why I picked up Tamron lenses, because I'm really trying to emulate gimbal without having to carry around this big thing. But I think the bottom line is, as you can probably tell, although I'm hearing a little bit of vibration, this gimbal surpasses pretty much any lens vibration you can imagine. And I don't even have this set up ideally right now. So today I'm filming again. I've decided to stick with priority mode more than anything for ease of use. I know I can get a little bit better exposure and definitely better color if I stick with manual mode and adjust accordingly. Hey, the watermill. So this is the watermill I never got to take you guys to the other day because I ran out of battery. Holy shit, these are slippery rocks. I need to invest in some good hiking boots. I have slippery tennis shoes and Sorel snow boots. So as you should be able to tell, I'm just doing everything in autofocus also today. Today is about simplicity for me, but also giving you guys some little bit more stable, beautiful footage of where it is I'm coming. And dragonfly. Can you track a dragonfly, Tamron? Come on, little dragonfly. No, not today. Okay. Future videos to come. Dragonfly action. 120 frames per second. I'm really fortunate that the part of Tokyo I live in is really surrounded by a lot of nature, and you know, nature in general in Japan is very appreciated and intertwined with culture. Temples, shrines, and restoration and preservation of old structures. We're a little bit low on the horizon there. Is that good right there? Yeah, unfortunately, I can't do a lot of really cinematic movements because as I'm finding the inertia, for whatever reason, is sending this gimbal into power off mode. But it seems fine doing this sort of stuff. I really do think it's battery. I haven't run the batteries low in a very long time, but I do recall that when they get low, that's kind of what it starts doing. So here's that pond. Let's see if we can lock and do a little slider action. Hope the color looks okay with you. I think I'm going to be grading this before I put it out there. It seems I chose a bad color mode, but rather than have to grade two separate pieces, I'm just going to stick with this. There's moss. So it's really always amazes me. Granted, it's 5 a.m., but I think if you go to most parks in central Tokyo at 5 a.m., they'll still be rather busy. But, you know, for country bumpkins like myself, who don't mind a little of isolation. Oh, look at that. Somebody must have, oh, no, okay, it's not closed off. I thought they closed this off. super slippery little plank here. I saw, oh, they did close it off. Yeah, I saw somebody slip and fall on their ass the other day. So that's presumably why they did it. I am going to break all the rules, you guys. Don't be like me. I know it's super slippery. For cinema, and I just almost slipped. For the cinema. If I fall on my ass, I did it for the cinema. When you're walking on ridiculously slippery, algae-covered wood, a wide stance is a safer stance. It just means you're gonna be less likely to bang your head when you eat shit. Thing about gimbals, so I'm gonna say this also because I don't know if this is silky smooth today because I didn't spend the time dialing it in. And I know also I'm not holding it sometimes the right way, which is gonna affect it. But the thing about most gimbals, and again, why this gimbal is worth it, especially for the prices you can get it for now, is because you might get a gimbal and you know it's really close, but there's little jitters as you might be seeing right now. And though some of that can be rectified in walking technique and holding technique and the way you move your body, with good gimbals, with a lot of control, that can be greatly reduced by adjusting the settings, again, for motor torque, the speed, the offset mode, and all kinds of other little bits you can adjust. I'll do a walkthrough of this menu in another video of the actual GUI for the Tilta. One of the big downsides for this gimbal, though, for me, is that all the gimbal adjustments can only be done on a phone or Android type device or something that you can load that onto. I have not found any way to do it directly on a PC, although I know there are some Android operating systems for PCs, so if you want to go that route. But I've tried to put that on one of my PCs and it just wouldn't go, so yeah. Grain of salt there. But my point is, though, and again, back to this gimbal, you know, there's times that I've done stuff like this and important stuff and it looked like shit and I was really, really bummed. But the times when I really, really spend the time to dial in the settings for the type of shots you know you're going to be doing. So that's the thing too, is it's not a one size fit all solution. Any gimbal that claims that is full of shit. Every type of motion, there's a better setting, and this gimbal lets you do that. You know, if I want to do ridiculously slow, like turn your body slightly and then like don't move, the gimbal, see, it does it a little bit. I forgot the word for it right now. I'm going to call it the cushion zone, but it's not called the cushion zone. But that little bit, like after you stop it, the ramping, okay, it ramps down and ramps up as well. So you can actually set this. See, that's you know, it continues moving for about a half an inch to an inch on the actual gimbal. Obviously it looks bigger on the actual subject I'm filming. But you can change that to the point where I can turn my body 90 degrees and it won't move until I stop. And then it will do that whole 90 degrees or even a little bit more of that movement. Silky smooth. And depending on how you set it, either extremely slow or relatively fast. So here, I'm going to turn really fast. See, that's not amazing, but now imagine that well adjusted. So there's a guy coming. He looks like he doesn't want to be on camera, so we're going to walk over here and do some beautiful video of this little, I'm going to call it a duck shrine. A duck temple, I guess temple, because there's living ducks there on the water. This is epic, but we need a little sky in this shot. So if I wasn't, I think what we'll do in a moment here is we'll sit down and we actually will try to dial this gimbal in for really, really slow cinematic type movements. I think I have the time this morning. It doesn't seem like it's going to pour down rain on me. The other day I came out here, I actually haven't published that, and I don't know if I will. It was with this lens, just handheld, but it was just a little bit too close to my face like this, but worse. But I think what I'm going to do, so I got super drenched as it was actually a fairly cold morning, but it really felt good, and I didn't dress as layered as I usually do, and I didn't bring my raincoat. And yeah, it did not let up. It just poured down on me. I got a little bit of a cold, if you can't tell. It's not Corona. Too soon? Yeah, I know. Okay, we're gonna go to my little sitting spot. Even the bathrooms here are beautiful, right? So. Yeah, this gimbal's not behaving as I thought it really was gonna just die on me today, but it's weird. Not quite sure what the issue is. It might just be in the settings. So let's see if we can rectify that. Okay, so I'm back now. I have changed the gimbal settings a little bit here. Actually quite a lot. So now what I've basically done is I've turned the speed down to extremely low for both pan and tilt to basically 1, which is incredibly slow. I've left the motor speed or motor strength alone, and I did adjust though the I'm forgetting the name. I adjust the compensation, which is basically how much play there is before it'll take action and move should you give it some input, meaning move left, right, or up or down. So right now I'm going to turn, so it's turning very slowly on its own as I just turn barely, but I'm going to do a 90-degree turn now and show you basically what this does. I've turned 90 degrees now. And I'm just standing here now. I'm not moving after that 90-degree turn at all. So you should be able to see this is quite a slow pan, and if you have a tripod added to this, it obviously will give you a lot more amazing results. What I'm gonna do, it's still turning very, very slowly. I'm still standing, not moving, but I'm gonna actually force it to turn a little bit more by turning about another 45 degrees. It should turn a little faster. By setting it this way, ooh, it's starting to rain. This gimbal is not waterproof. By setting it this way, the ramping out is extremely slow, but usually you don't really need that. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take cover in a second here. What I'm gonna do though is there is a ledge down here, so I'm gonna, one more time, pan 90 degrees. I'm gonna set on the ledge right after that so it can be super stable. Now there might be some wobble, and that's because this ledge is not flat, so it's a curved top, so I'm wobbling a little bit as I do this. How well does the G2X do in the rain? It's a test I wasn't planning on doing. Okay, so I'm gonna do something a little different. Usually I would go over back to where I was to take cover, but I'm gonna go this way because at least I can get some shots as I go this way. Oops. So the trick is here though, see, you need a little more forethought when you're in this super slow mode, because as you see, that little temple on the water got out of frame because I turned the other way and it didn't want to come back when I turned back. So you have to think about exactly where you want to be in several seconds and kind of do it that way. But as you should be able to see, this is a much smoother action. Now obviously if you're chasing around kids or a live event, especially like a wedding or something, This isn't necessarily your ideal setting, though it could be for certain moments, but you're not going to be able to follow people quickly. You know, somebody's on my left and I'm like, I want to turn. Well, guess what? It didn't work. It's going, but very slowly. So it really is extremely versatile though, and gives you that ability to basically dial your settings into anything you could need. But the largest faux pas that Tilta made here, and there's no signs of any firmware ever coming for this to improve this, is that they should have given you the option to save settings, like at least 3. I mean, it should be more than that, but at least save 3 of your favorite settings, because by doing so, now we're undercover here, by doing that, you would have the ability to instantly go back to your favorite wedding settings, family day settings, nature park settings, you know, car chase scene settings and whatnot. Now, again, getting back to why this still is a purely professional gimbal though, if you're on set, so I'm just going to turn this 90 degrees, it's on the table now, I'm not even going to touch it. But if you're on set, you know, and you're a professional, you write down all of the settings for different situations that you may need to use it for, and fairly quickly in the app, you know, within 30 seconds to a minute, you should be able to dial in those settings. So it's not impossible, but it wouldn't have taken much to just make it 1 or 2 clicks away. I'm going to show you, too much rain. So, country life isn't for everyone in Japan, but if you can handle isolation and realize that some people are just kind of going to ignore you, and some people are going to stare at you, I think this part of Tokyo has a lot more to offer. Laid back feel, cleaner air, a lot cleaner air. I think we're going to cut it here for a little while and hope this rain lets up. Okay, welcome to Studio C. So the rain, I don't think it's going to stop, but it seems to be getting a little bit lighter here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back from whence I came. I'm going to try to get back over across the bridge and walk through that little grove, hopefully for a little bit of protection from the rain. For the gimbal, not the camera. Z6 is very well weather sealed. But I'm going to try and get into that old Japanese house, and there at least I'll stay dry, maybe be able to get some nice shots under there and around there, because it's got a kind of overhang that keeps that general area around it dry. But yeah, so Tilta G2X, it's a pretty good gimbal. It's old now by gimbal standards, and it's a shame that Tilta didn't take customer service and firmware updates more serious, as well as kind of quality control and maybe a little bit more honesty about the problems they had with this gimbal. You know, I'm so tempted just to see how well this gimbal holds up. I have a feeling it'd actually do remarkably well in the rain, because most probably don't know this, but drone motors and gimbal motors actually are okay in water. The other electronics, that's another issue, but ESCs also, that's another issue. But the actual motors themselves are fine, and I have a feeling that, I mean, I've opened up my other gimbal to some extent, and the other G2X, and it's not, it's built well. It's built well, and it's not exactly easy for water to get into it, as far as I can tell. So yeah, all right. Let's hope that, oh, almost stopped. The rain's almost stopped. I think this is good timing, okay? Let me get over to the other side now. Pocari. Hey, Pocari. You looking for American to sponsor your product? A little bit of zane, a little bit of wackiness. Pocari Sweat, #1. Mr. Bob. Okay, here we go, back into it. It has virtually stopped raining. I feel a tiny little drizzle, but this is good news. I'm gonna get over to, still in super slow pan mode. We're gonna get over to, if it'll pan on that, let's see, zoom on, focus on that. Super old Japanese house. It's obviously a bit of a photographer mecca. That being said, I mean, when I say mecca, I mean for this area, because you see there's 3 photographers in front of me here. Most of them come with telephoto lenses because there's kingfishers here, really bright blue little birds that dive into the water and catch fish. So a woman photographer was talking to me earlier and told me there's going to be an art gallery here in a couple months, and her stuff is going to be there exhibited with some haikus from her sister. So that's pretty cool. So, oh, and my water just fell in the pond. Shit. Oh, that's not good. Let's see what just happened. How do I get it out? It fell off my bag. What do I do? Daijoubu. They will pick it up? Okay, thank you. Okay, so a nice man just told me the security will come here and pick up the water. I kind of figured as much. I mean, it's a small pond. They have a nice little boat, little rowboat, and it's a floating bottle. It's obviously not going anywhere. But I feel a little bit bad because it's such a beautiful little spot. And here we go. Look at this beautiful slow pan. Beautiful slow pan. And then what's that? Oh no, it's a pet bottle, plastic bottle in the pond. Who did that? Wow, see, this is how slow that pan is, so it goes all the way back to me before it actually starts panning. So I keep panning up where it goes down. So another thing to note is, although this is a one-handled gimbal, it does have optional 2 handles that you can buy for about $200. It's now actually $150 for the original set, and there's a new version which actually has the same controls as the handle on the right side handle, and that one's about $200, which actually I think both are a reasonably good value, and I would recommend. I haven't personally purchased them yet. I recently bought the little adapter plate, which stupidly doesn't come with either of those sets. There's an adapter plate that comes with those set, or a block-off plate. There's a block-off plate that comes with both of those to avoid shorting out the electric contacts, but there's a version they made with actual threads for mounting on a tripod, and it's really, really ridiculous that Tilta doesn't include that one with the handles, because of course you need a way to mount it to something when you're not using it. They're just trying to get an extra $40 for that. Though I did give them $40, but I didn't buy the handles yet. Haha, that'll show them. I'll wait till those handles are $50 on eBay. But anyways, what I'm doing though, because another great thing about the Tilta G2X is it has ARRI style rosettes on each side. So that's how I'm mounting my phone, using a little small rig magic arm. And then the other side I actually have a Manfrotto Pixie, or whatever you call it, a little mini tripod, and I'm using that as a handle, which actually gives me some motion. I can turn it depending on which position I'm in. So it's pretty cool, I think. But I do also have a full rig that I sometimes put this on with nice handles. It's relatively heavy, but it gives me a really stable way to walk around with this. Here we go. Oh, walked right through the spider web. I forgot about them, and he's climbing up on my camera. Get off. No, and that was in my hand. I'm not going to show you guys this because I can't in this super slow motion. In the Edo area, there was 5 samurais in one house and only 2 women. Welcome to that Edo show. But yeah, see, even for that Edo show, I'm trying to pan slowly into that door, but it was a little bit too slow, and then it overshoots because I overshot going the other way. But again, very well thought out movements in this mode equate to some pretty cinematic stuff. This house, I want to try and get in. See, there's I wanted to get in here without the lights coming on. They provide barely any light, and I know that this camera can handle this room without them. And I want to see that. I want to see what the colors look like without those lights on. But I think if I sit quietly in here long enough, it will, in fact, allow for that. So there's a little bit better view inside this house than the other day. Yeah, and I see that those lights are creating some flicker, I think. You guys see that? It's unfortunate. Especially because I'm in one. There we go. Okay, there we go. Flicker be gone. Now I just can't move ever again. No, I'm gonna actually stop because I'm actually in 120 frames per second because I was hoping it'd be raining still when I got out there and get some slow motion rain, but that was pointless. True cinema, 24 frames per second, but I'm not digging this white balance. Okay, so flat light. Maybe I'll grade this, maybe I won't, but that is gonna obviously give me the best dynamic range in this situation. By the way, let's see, I don't know what all this stuff is. I think some of it's self-explanatory, but the thing to the left of the wagon looking thing over there is, I believe, for making rice. For, for cleaning rice. Super slowly. What's really cool about this little house is it actually has a little garden on the roof, and I think it's somewhat intentional. Not really sure if that was a traditional thing or if they're just doing it here, but there's plants growing up there, including beautiful flowers. So, yeah, it's interesting to me. Okay, the rain is coming back and I'm running out of battery, so we're going to wrap it up here pretty quickly. This is now set at basically 12 and 12 for the speed for tilt and pan. I think it's a little bit more reasonable. It lets me react fairly quickly, but not ridiculously quickly. You can follow people with umbrellas with impunity. How's that for some nice umbrella action? What can we do? What can we do? Can we stalk people without going to jail? As long as it's for art. I did it for the art. So in general, if you're working with the Tilta G2X or really any gimbal, what I recommend is first doing the auto calibrate, and that'll give you a kind of basic setting that I would call it the social event mode, because it will be fairly quick to follow things and people. And then from there, just work your way down, or even go all the way to the super slow settings and start to work your way up. What you will find though, is if you start messing with motor settings, you might start getting some really undesirable results. And what I mean by motor settings, I mean motor torque or strength, or whatever they call it, power, depending on your gimbal. That can start to get you some weird vibrations and even the flip around, destroy your gimbal type stuff. Nowadays it usually won't destroy a gimbal unless you have a cheap gimbal. But the G2X, I will say, handles that pretty well. I've had it pretty out of whack doing crazy shit, and it always comes back to life and does fine. So yeah, just find the settings that kind of work for you and for what you do. And if you want that super slow cinema, just know that you really got to plan it out exactly what you're going to be doing, because it's gonna, if you do any sort of fast movements, that's definitely not for vlogging. It's gonna take a long time to catch up with the direction that you're actually heading. So yeah, this is fairly reasonable. I wouldn't use this for, well, this might be an everyday setting right around here. Let's see, 90-degree turn. Yeah, see, that's actually faster than I like, but for this kind of stuff, it's probably pretty good. Maybe go back to my ugly face for a second and see how that works. There we go. I'm wet, I'm sweaty, I know it. You love it. Don't say you don't. And if you don't, maybe you got to think about what you constitute as beautiful. I am beautiful, no matter what you say. Not as beautiful as this though. So yeah, here we go. So now I can do the fairly quick, still cinematic, but I would say hyper cinematic. Let's try that again. Yeah, not quite what I was going for. You get the idea though. Here we go. Now we get our chance at slow motion. Okay, so I think that's about it for today. I'm gonna get out of here before it starts either pouring down rain, or my battery dies, or my memory card fills up, or my gimbal's batteries give out, or my arm gives out. Try and make it to the water wheel one more time. Maybe get some super slow motion. before this day is up. Also, I did only one 4K shot today. The rest is 1080p. I'll be uploading it as 4K. Let me know if you guys actually notice the difference, because if you don't, hey, I can save some time and some computing power, and also get a lot more length of video recording time when I'm out here doing this sort of thing. So enough of my ugly face. I think we're just gonna walk this one out with some beautiful views.